Hello and welcome. Today's power tips. Let's see if we can get us going live everywhere we want to. As you come in, say hello. Yay! Looks like we're working now. So, welcome everybody. Really excited to start doing some practice tips with you. Probably every other week, we're going to dive into some trainings that could be a benefit to you and your law practice, all about helping you to be a better person, a better human being on this planet, to being a better lawyer and being a better leader. So today we're going to talk about how do we use neuroscience to really tap into achieving greatness. And what I mean by that is, we're going to talk about peak performance today. How do we tap into peak performance to be operating at your absolute best consistently and sustainably? So I want to hear from you as you're coming in. Raise your hand, give me a comment, give me a thumbs up. Even if you're catching this on the replay, you can put hashtag replay and then give me a thumbs up to this question. Do you feel like often that you are running around putting out the hottest fires, meaning that you are just constantly a little bit behind, catching up? There's a to-do list that is always going and never ending. And I was talking to a client this week who's like, I just feel like I'm on this hamster wheel and I can't get off. I want you to know that you can get off of it. And there are ways for you to actually focus and immerse yourself in the conditions that are really for flow in your work and really having peak performance. So peak performance is not about spreading your time and your energy and your attention across multiple tasks, but instead it's about focusing intensely on one pursuit. So having a singular focus that allows for deep immersion, allows you to compound your progress and really enhance your cognitive abilities. So let me make sure that we are live in the right place. As you come in, please say hello. Let me know that you're here. And let's make sure that we are live, because I would expect to see some of you guys commenting. It looks like, yay, I just can't see that you're live. There you are. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, good. So I'm going to dive right in. So we want to talk about what are the ways that you can really tap into achieving flow state at work. What are the ways that you can really feel like you're operating at your best? That's what my goal is today, is to talk about that. And it's really knowing how to set up your environment and to set up your task and the work that you're doing in a way that really is optimizing your brain's capacity. And there are some clues in being able to do that. So we've been talking about peak performance. Everything that we do here at Mind Over Law starts with mastering your state, which is about mastering your energy, which means that you master your power. So this is our first practice tip that really taps into that. We are going to talk about some ways to really increase your productivity by 500%. And that's not an exaggeration, y'all. If you really will take some of these tips and employ them, you will become so much more productive. And there is actually a study that was done by the McKinsey Corporation that looked at a period over 10 years and interviewed top executives that were using these practices that we're going to talk about today. And they found on average that individuals reported being 500% more productive while they were in a state of flow. This means that when you achieve a state of flow, individuals are accomplishing as much work in one day as their non-flowing counterparts do in an entire work week. So more done in one day than if you're not in flow, that would take you all week to accomplish. So we're going to use some of the techniques that these participants in the study were using to optimize performance and productivity. Who's ready? Give me a hands up. Give me a thumbs up. What do you think is your biggest block to really being focused in your work? I'd love to see that. I get all kinds of feedback from lawyers I'll tell you that they talk about, and this was true for me when I was practicing law, that there's just so many different distractions. There's a lot of different hats that we wear. There seems to be constant distractions that come in. What we know is that technology is actually built to distract us, to have us constantly jumping from one thing to another. So, what is it for you? And if it is distractions, what are your biggest distractions during your workday? The more awareness that you have, what is getting you off balance, then when we have awareness of it, that's what we can do to change things. So I can't see your comments. Let me look and see if I can see your comments in a different space so I can catch up with you guys. All right. So give me, what do you think your biggest distractions are? If distractions is the thing that keeps you out of flow and really being immersed and focused, what are those distractions for you? What's the most common ones that you have? And let's see what we can do about the suggestions I'm going to have for you today to really tapping into peak performance and productivity. So what we know is that when we are in a state of flow, which flow is when we're really optimal performance. So we're really immersed in what we're doing. And this state, we actually experience really deep focus, heightened creativity, and a sense of being in the zone. This happens to people a lot when they're doing certain activities, like happens to me when I play music, when I play the guitar or when I play the piano. I really get in a state of flow. Happens a lot to people when they're doing certain types of athletics, listening to certain types of music, things like that. What we want to do is to know how to trigger flow for your work so that you have that deep focus and creativity in your work. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So the benefits of flow, one of the things is that you're able to absorb more information. So it allows the brain to take in more information per second, which means that you have improved data acquisition. Being in a flow state means that you're going to increase your attention to incoming information, which enhance salience and focus. Doesn't this sound wonderful? It also, when you're in a flow state, this enhance pattern matching and recognition, which allows for faster connections between the incoming information and your existing ideas. So it just allows you to assimilate and to process faster, is really what we mean by pattern recognition. It allows for, when we're in flow state, it really promotes lateral thinking and divergent thinking, which enables connections between ideas that might not necessarily be obvious. And if you're really distracted, feeling very anxious, constantly getting interrupting, you're going to miss these connections, this lateral thinking that can happen that really enhances your creativity. Flow encourages risk taking, which is essential for acting on new ideas, doing things in a different way, thinking outside the box, which means like really tapping into creativity, which allows you to turn these new and novel ideas into reality. Being in flow helps you with learning and memory. We know that the neurochemicals that are produced when we are in a flow state enhance our learning and memory. So this increases our likelihood of moving experiences from our short-term memory into our long-term storage. This is really important when you're trying to prepare for certain experiences, like in the courtroom, and being able to learn information, assimilate information, take in a lot of information into your memory, and then also turn it into creative arguments. So being in a flow state really helps you to do that. And then finally, we really look at when we are optimizing our workspace, then we can have real neurobiological consequences for flow. So an organized space can lower your anxiety. It can reduce your cognitive load. It helps you to facilitate really clear goals, which reduces your stress, which then enhances your flow state. So it's almost like a circular pattern here that happens. So there's a lot of neuroscience to support how to optimize your brain for flow, which leads to improved performance, creativity, and then overall well-being. Because the one thing that I really help people with the most, lawyers, is this idea of being really anxious and overwhelmed and stressed out, which then leads to, a lower immune response, people getting sick, not being able to recover, not having resilience, all the things that we need. So when we talk about using neuroscience to enhance the brain, what actually happens to your brain in flow? I think it's important to understand some of the mechanisms behind these techniques and what's happening in your brain that helps you to really tap into wanting to set things up for that. So we know that when we are in flow, that um, major changes happen in the brain. So there's increased focus because there's deactivation of the prefrontal cortex that allows for heightened focus and concentration on any task that you're working on. So that leads to improved performance and productivity. There's reduced anxiety. There's reduced motivation. I'm looking to see if I have this. I don't have this on slides, but when we reduce our anxiety, then we also have enhanced motivation. And then there are certain neurochemicals that play really an important role in flow states. And that's dopamine and norepinephrine, which both increase focus and attention, while there are other neurochemicals that surround the creative process, which lead to productivity and motivation. All right, so I'm giving you a lot of the benefits and what happens in the brain. So what are the tips to actually getting there? And that's what I really want you to think about today. Each one of these is a practice tip for you to develop flow, which means increasing productivity and performance. So the first is you want to set clear, specific goals for your time that you're working. So what we mean by this is I often talk about time blocking for work that does not have distractions. So time blocking means that we're going to set a time, ideally 1 to 3 hours, that we are not going to have distractions. So you're going to turn off email, you're going to turn off the phone, you're going to turn off text messaging. You are going to let your team know this is my time to work, unless truly the office is on fire or there's a true emergency that you need to interrupt me. That's key. And in that time blocking, there needs to be very specific goals. This is important to allow your brain to access a flow state, having clear, specific goals. So if I'm going to block the time right now, I know that this is what I'm working on. You want to set up the space for that. So if I'm going to work on let's say I'm going to write a motion, or I'm going to work on the brief for a certain motion, then I want to have everything in place for that. Where's my research? Where are the things that I need to review? I want to have it all open and ready to go. And I know that this is what I'm working on for this 1 to 3 hours. So very specific goals is crucial for a state of flow. You want to define what you want to accomplish and even break that down into manageable tasks during this period of time. And I've already said this, but it has to be a time where, might be the next slide. Nope. Well, time where there is no distractions. Then we want to be engaging in high value activities. So what that means is we want to focus on tasks that provide immediate feedback and require deep concentration. These type of activities are more likely to trigger flow states as they challenge your skills and provide a sense of progress in that. So if you want to be able, for here, if I was going to use the motion as an example, I would have the certain things that need to be accomplished that actually become tasks. That becomes the thing that gives you the feedback, and being able to check that off and move into the next thing. When we're looking for feedback loops, we want to establish feedback mechanisms to track your progress and adjust. So you want to do things that keep you engaged and motivate you, are going to lead you to a higher likelihood of achieving flow. So having those clear tasks marked that you're moving from one thing to the next is a way to be able to get where you're progressing forward. That's a feedback loop for your brain. You want to practice deep work. So that the only way to do deep work is to have uninterrupted blocks of time to work on your most important task. And those tasks need to be defined. Remember, clear goals. So when you immerse yourself in deep focused work, then you can enter a flow state more easily and you can sustain it for a longer period of time. If you only set a few goals within a period of time and you move through those quickly, you're going to drop out of flow as soon as the last one is um, accomplished. So you want to make sure that you have enough in this time period that you are actually working on, that you stay engaged. You want to create and maintain a routine. So if you do this on a daily basis, then it's going to support you getting into a flow state. So routine with that, I think that the very best time for flow is almost immediately after you wake up. And that seems a little crazy because we can talk about morning routines, which I think are very powerful for setting up your state for productivity. But we actually have it a little bit backwards. What we know, what science tells us about our brains is that right after we wake up, we're very close to the brain cycles that are similar to sleep that help us to get into deep flow. So if the night before you set up the space, and that means defining what you're going to work on, having everything ready to go, not having to search for things, not having to go to different places to find them. When I want to work on something first thing in the morning and I want to go into a deep flow state the night before, I literally open the tabs on my computer of what I need. Everything is ready for me to go and I leave it like that. I wake up. I've definitely have seen teachers say that you should do it as soon as you wake up. I have to go to the kitchen, get a cup of coffee because I'm a coffee girl, but I'll get the coffee and then I'll sit immediately down. Right. And I know what I'm working on. The tabs are open. It is ready to go. That helps you to get in a flow state because you're not so awake. You don't have a cognitive load. It hasn't been added on to your brain that you can immediately tap into this task. So what are things that are going to interrupt that because you're going to put in a cognitive load? If you wake up and start looking at email or text messages or even look on social media, then we're starting to dump into the brain other things to think about. We really want to be really right out of that sleep state, ready to go right in, because then your brain can drop into these deeper levels that allow for that deep, intense concentration. Now, guys, what's going to happen is there's going to be a little bit of a struggle at first. That is natural. That is actually the first state of getting into flow. For about 10 to 15 minutes, your brain's going to struggle just a little bit. It's going to want to be distracted. It's going to want to, oh, well, maybe I do need to look at email, right? You got to push past that. You got to be really disciplined and stay with it, with the task at hand, with the goal at hand. And if you do that, I promise 15 minutes, you'll start to tap into the flow state. You'll start to go into the flow part of it. But there's always a little bit of struggle of getting your brain to go there. So part of the routine is knowing that you got to set up the space. You got to know that the first 10 to 15 minutes, your brain's really going to want to go into distraction because that's really the state that we lived in, right? That's our norm. That's our default. The more you do this on a daily basis, this is about maintaining the routine, the easier, the less struggle it'll be for you because your brain is being primed for it. It knows what to expect. It knows how to get into this the more you practice it. All right. So then when you go into flow and you work on something for 1 to 3 hours, then the last part of the flow state, the very last part, is flow recovery. So this is the time that then you want to do the morning practices, the morning routine that helps your brain to recover, your system to recover a little bit. So this is when you would do exercise or mindfulness practice or journaling, like gratitude practice or some type of meditation to give your system the ability to recover. Then you can build in another block time for flow. All right. Finally, we want to just look at really leveraging your strengths. So you want to identify what really engages you in activities that help you to tap into a flow state. There are different things that we can do to really trigger flow. We can match when we So when we're doing something that's easy for us to be in flow, let's say like when I play music, certain kind of music, I can actually match a song that triggers a flow state for my brain, is an example of that. So there are different flow triggers that we can use to prime the brain for this state. But I just want you to be aware that there are different phases to flow, and there's that struggle flow phase first. Then we have what's called a release phase. This allows you to really get in to allowing your unconscious mind to take over. Then you go into flow state, and then you have that recovery phase, which would be when you would then do the morning practices, the morning routine that we hear about, of journaling, reading something that's really enhancing for your mind, you're learning something, etc. Okay, so this is just the first tip of the iceberg of a practice that really helps you to dive into peak performance. I love to talk about this. It's one of my passions. If you want to know how we do this with people, if you're like how we teach people and we teach lawyers to be in peak performance, or if you're like, Lexley, I really struggle with X, all you need to do is put hashtag peak into the comments and I'll reach out to you and we'll have a discussion about it. I have lots of tips that can help you to overcome some of the common obstacles to being really in peak performance, and love to share with you. So just put that into the comments, and we'll see you soon for the next live practice tip.